What's up, everybody? I'm Richter. I'm here with Kareem Rae, the founder and CEO at One Soccer Nation. Kareem's also an author, footballer, and host at the Pro Soccer Talk podcast. Kareem interviews pro soccer players in the MLS, in the USL, and other pro soccer leagues around the world. How's it going, Kareem?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, good. So, if you just want to give a quick introduction, Kareem, what's your story? What do you do, and how'd you get there?
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys, taking the time and having me on your show. So, I'm the founder and CEO at One Soccer Nation. It's a, 1 or 2 year old company. Um, Basically, I guess a long story short, 2 decades ago, I started playing soccer, fell in love with the game. At 18, that's when I really knew I wanted to go pro. So at 2018, I was down in England for a 6 week pilot trip, meeting the pros, watching the pros and playing alongside the pros, not a pro yet, but really getting shoulder to shoulder with these guys, figuring out how to go pro. And a long story short is that um Reading FC was interested in me, but they didn't sign me for whatever the reason was. I don't know what the reason was. There's an abundance of players, but not enough pro teams to, make
Yeah,
your
of
dreams
course.
a
Yeah,
reality. So unless you're Messi or Ronaldo, they're gonna go head over heels for you, but I wasn't Messi or Ronaldo yet at the time. So I guess long story short, um, that experience gave me the ultimate confidence within myself that I could actually do it. So I continued along my journey. 2019, another opportunity came about through Coach Bassam Naim, director of ANB Academy, to go to France for 3 months to train and possibly go pro. So I took that opportunity to experience and hopefully achieve my dreams of going pro, which again didn't happen, but it was a great experience. It kind of
yeah,
felt like I was in the army a bit.
yeah,
Um, but I came across the same problem. It was the passport that I was holding. I was holding a Canadian passport, which doesn't enable you to work in other countries. So that was one of my biggest problems. You need to get a work visa. So I didn't know how to do that at the time. I was always told about, this is what you need to do in order to get where you want to go is you need a work visa so you could get paid. And the teams weren't helping me with this as well, which means they weren't investing in me, which means that they weren't that interested per se.
yeah,
And then my last experience in 2021, Florida Naples, playing with Naples United FC, was a semi-pro experience that I had an opportunity in 2021, which was just last year. During COVID, I got to see the owners operate their soccer team. They were 2, 3 years in their ventures, and it was cool. I had my playing experience, and I got to see the business side of things. And just to wrap that part up, my mentor said, really pay attention to what's going on and start learning about the business side of things because your career may be coming, you know,
yeah,
kind of to too many dead ends.
yeah.
And I went down that rabbit hole of exploring the business side of soccer, which led me here today to this interview. So it's a long story, but long story short,
Yeah, yeah. So just out of curiosity, you mentioned that the passport was a big problem for you having a Canadian passport and that teams maybe weren't super helpful with that. How'd you kind of get around that obstacle?
so that's a good question. I ended up calling 100 plus immigration lawyers in the United States to understand the visa process specifically for the US. It's probably pretty similar in other countries, but immigration lawyers can help people get visas or immigrate to the country. And basically, what I found out, it does cost a little bit of money. We could be looking at $1,000 plus, and turnaround time could be within a month or over a month, 3 months
Yeah,
per se. Um, but if you don't have a work visa, which is the visa that players would want to get in order to get paid, because that's what you want to do. You want to get paid for what you love to do. And if you don't get that visa, you can't do it.
yeah,
So, a matter of fact, it doesn't have to do with how good you're on the field. It's just some back end stuff. It's like if
yeah,
you're not able to be legally in that country, then you can't achieve your dream.
yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
that was one of my biggest problems, and it was off the field. I think a lot of players, think everything has to do with on the field, but there's a lot of stuff in the back end, which I learned after 19 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And going off, you said you were 18 when you went to England or the UK to kind of pursue that, but you also wrote a book at that age. So what kind of led you to read that book and what was that all about?
Yeah, so my mentor, Mr. Jay Waterman, founder and CEO at Block Station, said, Kareem, do you know how to go pro? And I was like, honestly not at that time at 18 years old. Um, and in order to achieve what you want to achieve, you got to know what to do. And I didn't know the right steps to take in order to get where I wanted to go. So he gave me great advice, planted the seed. I took it, watered it, cultivated it, and basically took action. I didn't know how to write a book. I didn't even know if it was possible for me to write a book. And I looked into it. He provided some helpful videos. I looked into it, and I just started writing. And basically, obviously, it's everything in life. There's a specific recipe or formula. Started with the table of contents, what I wanted to write about, and started writing about the content, and then came up with the
Yeah.
cover design through Fiverr. You could get someone for cheap for like $10,
Yeah.
and then I uploaded it to Amazon KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, and boom, I had a book. So
Yeah.
I wrote it when I was 18, and it took me some time to release it to the public to
Yeah.
share with you guys. It took me 1 year. I published it at 19 when I finished it at 18 years old. So that was like a whole another hurdle
Yeah.
to get over, which is pretty interesting in the mind. Um, but yeah, it took some time. It was pretty cool. And as you know, you're 19 yourself, you could imagine it was, for me at least at my time, it was one of the hardest things I did in my life at that time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
definitely very helpful and very fruitful. I guess the last thing I could say about the book is it's something that could be printed a million times and shared with a million people. So that's one of the cool things.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And you kind of wrote that at the start of your career. Now looking back, what would you say to yourself if you're 16 or 18 writing that book? How would you have wrote it different, or what are some things you kind of learned along the way that you wish you would have known then?
Yeah, just take action. Don't think too much. As long as you have good people around you providing you with good information, you just need to take action to generate the result and kind of just stop thinking about it. I'm a thinker, so
Yeah.
I've reduced thinking and focused more so on action, and very thankful for that.
Yeah. And you've personally interviewed close to 100 professional soccer players yourself. You're being interviewed right now, but you've done that yourself. What are some key takeaways from that? And specifically, what do you think are some key takeaways for young aspiring athletes to take away from what professional soccer players have to say?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the exact number I've interviewed 85 professional soccer players that play in the Major League Soccer, United Soccer League, NISA Soccer, NISA and NISA, National Independent Soccer League. It's called hashtag Pro Soccer Talk. It's on our One Soccer Nation YouTube channel. With what I've learned from interviewing 85 pro players, actually, sorry, the reason why I started to interview pro players is because I really wanted to focus on how these guys were going pro.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anyone else on the internet that does this, from my knowledge of what I know. And that's what I focus on to share with everyone online. And what I noticed, to answer your question simply, is that everyone's journey to pro is different. There's no one set path. You do
Yeah. No
this.
blueprint. Yeah.
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 So that's one of the biggest takeaways. Everybody's journey is different. And I would honestly recommend for you guys to check it out. Hashtag Pro Soccer Talk playlist on One Soccer Nation, because it could be very valuable to you, to giving you a better perspective of the reality of how to go pro, dependent on the league that you want to get into, whether that's CPL, Canadian Premier League, you want to go to the US, MLS, USL, NISA. We cover North America. So I hope you guys
Yeah.
find value in that.
And you've mentioned One Soccer Nation, you have the podcast, but on top of that, what is One Soccer Nation? What do you do?
Yeah, so One Soccer Nation, we want to give unknown superstars the chance to go pro. Jumping into the numbers, there's 250 million players worldwide that play at different levels, right? And then you have only 130,000 professional soccer players actually living out their dream and getting paid for what they love to do. And this is according to FIFA's 2019 report that I've read, that's public online and anyone can have access to. That's 130,000 is not even 1%.
Yeah.
1% would be 2.5 million players playing professionally if that was a reality. But maybe we'll get there one day. Who knows?
Yeah. Maybe.
Um,
More leagues for that.
that's a
Yeah.
lot of players. But the reason, why I created this ecosystem, this all-in-one ecosystem, is because Going back to 2021, Florida Naples, I got to see the business side of things in soccer. That's when I really started to dive in 2021 of soccer business, right? I was the player before playing
Yeah.
in the game, but that's when I really started to learn about the game. And then after I interviewed a couple pro players, I was very focused on how to go pro, but then I became broad and focused on different um different pieces of the game, the coaches, the scouts, the agents, the
Yeah.
leagues,
All those
pro
different
leagues,
aspects. Yeah.
all these different aspects, the club owners, which is something I'm very excited about that I recently interviewed 3 USL championship owners, which is pretty cool, I think. Um, but I also share this information publicly so that other people could, watch, learn, and get value from,
Yeah,
which
for
is
sure.
another thing that I really like about what we do too. But sorry, answering your question, One Soccer Nation, we basically want to give unknown superstars the chance to go pro. How we're going to do that is by having full ownership and control of our operations and our ecosystem. And basically, just if you guys can imagine, we want to invite 100 players from around the world, bring them to our event, and we want to guarantee out of the 100 players that come to our event, high quality players from anywhere around the world, that 30 of those players or even 25 players of those players will be signing a professional contract. And the business model that we came up with by guaranteeing this, we want to guarantee this chance of them going pro is by acquiring a pro team in a professional league. We've engaged with multiple professional leagues, not only in Canada, US, and Dubai, but hopefully later down the line, once we have proof of concept, once we acquire a pro team, which is most likely going to be in the US. I'm not going to say the league yet until we put pen to paper,
Yeah.
but some very cool stuff we're working on.
Yeah. So something hasn't really been seen before is that you want to have pretty much an open tryout, not necessarily an open tryout, an invite only tryout maybe, but it's guaranteed to go pro. You can have a full roster open. And then those unknown stars, like you said, maybe have a chance to play at a professional level. So something that I don't think we've really seen before, but could definitely be really interesting going forward. I just want to circle back now to talk a little more about Europe. You're a Canadian player that went over there as a teenager, pretty much. And what would you have to say to any other Canadians that are in high school right now that want to take that route, want to go overseas and want to play professionally? Um, what can they do and what did you learn along the way? You mentioned the passport, but is there anything else you think kids need to know if they want to achieve their goals?
Yeah, 100%. I think that it's a different time. It's 2022. We have the Canadian Premier League that started back 3 years ago, 2019. That's in our backyard, guys. If you guys are from Canada, I would recommend focusing on getting into there. It's definitely, going to be less money, and you won't need to spend as much resources if you were, for example, to go over to Europe. And
Yeah.
if a club wasn't sponsoring you or covering your expenses and it's coming out of your pocket or your parents' pocket, spending thousands and thousands of dollars, plane tickets, a place to stay,
Yeah.
food, travel expenses, this stuff adds up. And the longer you're there, it's going to add up. So if, you know, what I'm saying now is, as a Canadian, we have something to look up to in order to achieve our dreams, which is the Canadian Premier League, which is very exciting. And shout out to those masterminds that started the league, and that got the investors that invested into this league to bring this league to life. So I think that's a huge opportunity for Canadians to focus on. I didn't have this league to look up to when I was growing up playing. It was like we were looking at, as we get older, turning 16, 17, 18, when we could travel, I'm going to Europe. That
Yeah.
was it. What was going on in my mind, because that's where the opportunity was, right? You're going to
Yeah.
go where the opportunity is. And I had to do that myself. I was willing to do that. And I think just to add a couple points here, not every player from Canada is gonna, or the United States is gonna travel outside to achieve their dreams. You gotta have a burning desire. You gotta be obsessed. You gotta have money, resources.
Yeah.
Not everyone has all these different things. I was very lucky and blessed to have that, thankfully, and experience it and then share it, and also want to help others achieve their dreams. So very
Yeah, for
exciting.
sure. Definitely changing ecosystem there in Canada with the CPL coming up. Something, kids can stay on home soil and play professional, which is something to look forward to, something for kids to look up to when they're growing up, and you can see professional soccer players playing down the street from your house is something pretty cool these days. So yeah, Is there anything else you think that's going to change in the Canadian soccer ecosystem going forward? That's gonna, I mean, we have the 2026 World Cup coming, right? How do you see it changing in the next 5 years or so here?
Huge. You know, you heard Alfonso Davis say we're trying to change Canada hockey nation to a soccer nation. So,
Yeah.
you know, just name dropping right there, a big quote by the man himself. Uh, you know, I love that. I'm in the business of soccer, one soccer nation. We're here to grow the
Yeah.
beautiful game and work alongside synergistic partnerships and collaborations like yourself with your company. And 2026 World Cup, very exciting. Something I'm looking forward to being a part of. 2022, I think we could have been there somehow, some way, but
Yeah.
as in like myself and One Soccer Nation, but um, really focused on the project we're building up and we're preparing for 2026. So we're ready to catch. I think we're going to be ready to catch that wave. We got 4 years coming down to three.
Yeah.
Very excited. Um, especially monetizing. Monetizing is very important to us and how we do that.
We appreciate the time, Kareem. Really value all the advice you've given. So thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks.